Okay, here we are. Welcome. Welcome, Christine. Thanks for showing up. Let's begin, as always, by just getting the fuck out of the way. Take a couple of breaths, settling into this present moment, and getting out of the way. I am here to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not need to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes. Knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. I had another revelation today. I'm experiencing deeper and deeper layers of peace. As I realize that I get to decide, I can choose peace instead of this. When I'm not at peace, I realize I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. Because peace is what I am. There's peace in my mind, a part of my mind that is always peaceful, the Holy Spirit that remembers we are one. The only role of the teacher of God is to realize that this is all a dream. And there's so much peace in that. There's no need to fight the ego. You just watch it. And when it puts up a fight, you just watch it. And there's so much peace there. Awareness of dreaming is the real function of God's teachers. That's how simple it is. So watching, there's been a lot to watch as I unwind the stories. There's no more bucking bronco chaos. It's at a distance now where I can see the horse. It's not even a bronco. It's not even bucking. It just is. And I'm aware that none of this is real. I've been watching Byron Katie videos. For so many years, I just assumed that all of my thoughts were mine. I didn't question them. I didn't do any questioning of my thoughts. And so just this simple activity of watching and then taking it a step further with Byron Katie, if you want to question, it really helps to unwind the stories, the lies. You look at them and question them. They don't hold water, and you can see the ridiculousness. You can see the self-centeredness of the ego. And like in The Wizard of Oz, when you see the man behind the curtain, he loses all of his power. As soon as you see it for what it is, it loses all of its power. So awareness is a superpower. Yeah. How are you doing, Christine?
Well, it was a rich, deep couple of days, like really concentrated. I was at Andrews, and it's so concentrated there. And I know on the Thursday group I talked about um, just spiraling. I noticed myself starting, like when I first went over to Andrews, I was clear. I was clear. Like you're saying, there's no bucking bronco. That was I was just really clear, and I could feel trust, like that's when I'm struggling, when I'm forgetting to trust. And so I could feel it. And it didn't matter what happened there. I was clear. I was clear. Didn't matter what he was doing or not doing or what it looked like. It was really nice. And then the second day I started to spiral. I started to notice it. And I felt this like block. It was I could feel a block, just like a little wall to slide into place. I could feel it. He felt it too. All he has to do is touch me, and he reacts right away. He's like, "What's going on? What's going on? Something's different. Like, what's going on?" And so I watched it. I watched it spiral, and then I actually came home for a while. And um and then I watched it spiral more, and then I had a cry, and I had a meltdown. It was really, really helpful, actually. And then yeah, and then I started to come out of it. I really started to come out of it when I went back. I went back over to Andrews at about 1 in the morning, and that was a bit of a wild experience because he was like half asleep and half whatever. He thought somebody was breaking into the house, and it was really fucking bizarre and insane, actually. But um, once all the drama passed, it was like then everything started to shift. Like everything started to the spiral started to ease up. And yeah, it's like when you get back to purpose, getting back to purpose, it just really softened everything. And this morning I woke up with like Coldplay lyrics in my mind. I could hear a Coldplay song, and it was like, it's funny, I can't remember the lyrics. I love Coldplay, and I can't remember the lyrics. I just remember how it felt. It was like just it felt like just come back to the truth. It's right here. It's right here, actually. Just come back to the truth. And so and then I right in that moment I prayed, just okay, I'm going to read the lesson, just have it be incredibly helpful for me today. And of course today's lesson is I choose to see my brother's sinlessness. And the description of it is just, it's so gorgeous. Like I only see what I put on my brother. That's how I experience it. It's what I see. And so and because Andrew is such it's almost like Andrew's the only one I have to practice this with, because it's such a he's such a deep well for me. He's such a deep backdrop, like so concentrated, such a concentrated learning backdrop that I only have to get it once. Like I only have to apply it and get it with him, and then it just spreads everywhere. So yeah, today's lesson just like, I mean, I just felt like this morning it was like the truth was just flowing through freely. Like do you remember what Matt was saying? Like when we had that meeting, it was like the love behind the terror is just waiting to flow through. You have this, this terror coming up, and right on the other side of it is love, and that's what we actually are terrified of. It's just waiting to flow through, and that's what's been happening lately. And this morning, it was like really prevalent. It was really, really prevalent, and it was really beautiful. It was a little bit like this today. It was a little bit wavering. We had a funny experience with a new TV in the house, and we got it home, and I'm looking at this new TV, and I'm like, what the fuck did we do? What did we just do? This feels insane. Like it felt, did we pause? Did we do any of those things? It was really bizarre. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but there's something going on with the new TV in the house, some kind of learning experience with the TV. I don't know how that's going to go. But you know what? I really like that I I get to have these learning experiences with seemingly insignificant things. Like in the past, I needed way more drama to see something. And, you know, now it's like a pizza. A pizza will teach me a lesson. A TV will teach me the same lesson that it took a year long relationship or something in the past, something way messier and way heavier. So I do prefer that. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, when you don't listen, messages get louder, right? So it's good when you start really honing in to listening. They don't have to be really loud. You get it. You get the subtlety. Hooray. Because sometimes it'll take all the way up to stage 4 cancer for some people to fucking listen, right? I know with my body symptoms, it had to get pretty fucking intense before I listened. Yeah, 3 suicide attempts in 10 days, and I woke up strapped to a fucking hospital bed. That was a wake-up call.
Yeah, I don't want it to look like that.
Yeah, it doesn't
I don't
have to
want that
look
much
like that.
drama, that much,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that. All you have to do is listen to the whispers before they start screaming, because they
yeah.
whisper for a long time.
It's so funny because all of my medical stuff that has happened in the last, I don't know, since 2017, it just turned into mystical experiences. Yeah, just like a lot of forgiveness around hospitals and stuff, right? So yeah, it just, I don't know. Every time I was at the hospital, I just felt like I was floating, like I was floating through the hospital. It was like I was adjacent to what was happening in this really beautiful way. In this really beautiful way. Yeah.
I just about died last summer because I would rather die than go to the emergency room. My appendix had already ruptured, and I wasn't going. Can't make me. I'd rather fucking die than go back to the emergency room.
And how'd that go?
Well, eventually something had to give, and I finally ended up at the emergency room, and they did a couple of tests and went, oh my goodness. And emergency surgery happened within 12 hours. It was, looking back on it, like the whole thing is just so fucking shocking. Like, yeah, you were going to die.
Yeah, it's like it comes back to wanting to be right.
Yeah.
Like what the course says, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And that
Yeah.
is hanging on to them to some serious, like, no, I'm right about this. And
Yep.
what I want
Yep.
is coming first. Yeah,
Yep.
my experience with that is I have two actually, and they kind of overlapped, I think, at the time. But I remember cracking my foot on the toilet, like really hard. I'm pretty sure I broke a bone in my foot and I did not go to the hospital. And I had a couple of really good reasons that seemed really practical, like really practical, really logical. Of course, I'm not going to, like, they made so much sense to me. I mean, it was insanity, but it made so much sense to me. And then at some point later on, wow, okay. I just, something happened and I made the connection. Maybe it was whooping cough. I think it was whooping cough. I had whooping cough. It was really bad. Like really, really wild experience. Really fucking wild experience. And like I put it right up there with being hit by a car, right? And one of the hardest things about it was when I was well enough to go back to work, like to be at school with the kids, I was still coughing a lot. And what would happen is when I would cough, I had to stop whatever I was doing because the only thing I could do in that moment was remember to breathe because it forces all the air out of your lungs. Like, and then when you're finally done coughing, you're like trying to get the air back in. It freaked the kids out. It freaked parents out. It freaked everybody out. And what I noticed was I fucking hated it when people would notice and come rushing over to see if I was okay. Like, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you need anything? But I'd be like, get the fuck away from me. I actually went to all the classrooms and I said to everyone, when you see me coughing, leave me alone. Don't come to see if I'm okay. Don't do anything. And and I didn't understand what was going on there. And then it went all the way back to my car accident when all those nurses and doctors and specialists were crowded around me to check my head and my all, you know what I mean? I was run over. So everybody was there looking at every single part, every single body part, you know? And there's something about that that just felt so overwhelming, like everybody looming over top of me. I couldn't do it. So I couldn't go to the hospital to get my foot checked out. And it got slathered over with all this weird logic, all in an attempt to mask the belief underneath, the discomfort underneath. Yeah, it's wild. The lengths, like you were saying, the lengths the ego will go to blind, put the blinders on. No, there's
And to
nothing
be
wrong.
right. And was it David who said that the ego, it's one of its goals is to take us out before we figure this out? Like it's my ego's goal to take me out in this lifetime before I wake up.
I've never heard David say that, but I have heard him say he has this story that he tells when he was at a gathering and there was a woman in the crowd and he was talking for about 20 minutes and she interrupted him and she said, but you have nothing nice to say about the ego. Like you're not saying anything nice about the ego. Like you got to say something nice about the ego. And he just paused and his response was, the ego is trying to kill you. Like it was like boom. You want it straight? I'm gonna give it to you straight. You know, like we're not going to dick around with this. This is the purpose of the ego. Pull the wool over as
Yeah.
best as it
Yeah.
can. And it's so convincing. Like when I was even with all like the awareness and the willingness that I have now, When I was spiraling day before yesterday, I mean, I knew the ego was taking over and I knew blah, blah, blah. However, it's very convincing in the moment. Like, it's very convincing. Like, I really did send out the dogs of war to find witnesses to compile my list for the reasons why I need to stay the fuck away from Andrew. Boom, 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 checklist, you know? Yep. He does that. He does that. He acts like this, blah, blah, blah. The dogs of war were collecting witnesses and evidence. Hard fucking core. And I knew it was happening. I knew it. And it still took me 24 hours to really let spirit pull me out.
It's fucking vicious. It's it's just yeah, it really is quite a revelation to find out just how vicious the ego is.
Yeah, I feel like shit fast. Like whenever a thought comes in and I grab onto it, wow, do I feel like shit fast? Like it's
Yeah,
instant. It's instant pain. It's not something I notice 3 hours later. It's like now.
yeah,
And thank God it is.
absolutely.
Fucking thank God it is,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Before it would take years for me to really, really notice, how bad it really was.
yeah.
Now it's 20 seconds. Yeah. There's a fruit fly in here. And so my inner murderer is like on high alert. Yeah, I'm still watching Smallville. What?
Yeah,
And it's just, it's such a, I mean, I don't know if you know Superman, like the story of Superman or anything like that. But like in the movies, the story is told so fast because it's a movie. It's only 2 hours long. You got to get through that shit. But with a TV show like with Smallville, everything is slowed right down. And the, it's like, oh my God, it's so, it's like Superman's father, his biological father, Jor-El, is like an entity that he can decide to listen to when he chooses it. And he's only there to guide him and train him and guide him. And he has so much resistance to listening. And he'll walk towards it and then be like, oh, I want to do it my way. And then there's a shitstorm. So I'm watching this happen over and over and over again. Like he'll lean towards Jor-El or Holy Spirit for instructions, for guidance, and he'll hear it. And then he's like, fuck you, I'm going to do what I think is right. And then it's like this shit hits the fan. And what he thought was bad gets twice as bad. It's wild. I mean, it seems like a television show called Smallville, but it's really not. It's like, are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? Yeah. And again, really gentle. If I can see this and hear these lessons by watching a show called Smallville about Superman, that's pretty fantastic. I'll take it. Yeah.
That reminds me of my journey to become a soul communicator, learning how it's basically the development of trust, learning how to trust guidance, recognizing first in hindsight, oh shit, that was a message, should have listened. Oh shit, that was a message, should have listened. Oh yeah, should have listened. Oh, how come you're not listening yet? That was a good one too. Thinking I have all of these great ideas, realizing none of those great ideas were actually mine.
And what does David say?
There's
Yeah, when he
six
looks himself
phases.
up, hey,
Hmm. Go ahead.
sorry, David says, when he if he looks himself up, it says he's an author and blah blah blah. I'm not any of those things. I didn't do any of that. I didn't create any of that. You know, no, you didn't write that book. You didn't do that. You didn't do any of the things you think you've done. You didn't accomplish anything, actually. Yeah, that's some wild truth. Hmm.
It is. And when you finally start to get it, like there's so much peace in there. I've been watching my ego today have a couple of shitstorms. And I'm just like, oh, look at you. It's so interesting when you develop that separation. Like, I am not my ego. I am not that which is freaking out right now in whatever way it's choosing to have a meltdown. Hmm. Yep. I love this. I must have decided wrongly because I am not at peace. So always in the now, am I at peace? Why not? What's in the way of my peace right now? Usually it's the insane voice talking to itself. It's very distracting.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, if I think about money, like I'm not upset for the reason I think, right? So the thoughts about money feel more valid, more solid, more something than the triggers around my car accident or the triggers around hell, even sexual abuse. Um, the money stuff really does feel more valid, more real, more like I can't, and because that thought comes in there with them, I can't look at them the same way as I look at all the other things when it's triggered. Of course, it's not true, but I have to go hardcore into reminding myself of that because it really feels like it's not. Yeah. Even now saying it, I don't believe it. I know that I'm wrong, but I really, there's a big enough chunk that doesn't believe it. Like that I'm this worried about it. Of course, you should be that worried about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because of XYZ, look at all the past and future crap. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a great experience, such a great reminder. God, when me and Andrew and Marie were living together, I'm pointing this way because we used to live in this like a similar unit, just a building over. And she said one day, she's like, "Yeah, all that money when you were working, all that money that you saved, you thought you were doing something right. You thought you were the one that was saving money, and you thought you were living in the world right in a good way. because you were saving all your money and you didn't have debt and you were doing very well in the world. Like you thought you were accomplishing something. And I was like, holy fuck, I totally did. I thought that was all me doing something great. I'm doing the world properly. I don't have debt, blah, 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 you know, because I had the opposite happening. I had, I created debt when I came back to Canada. So there was all this like guilt and shame and everything. And Marie was like, okay, well, you thought you were doing something over here when you were saving money and you weren't. And now you think you're doing something over here, which is having some debt, which you didn't do either. Like you weren't doing anything over here and you're not doing anything. There's no doing. You weren't doing anything. So that was like, oh yeah, like that sense of uh hubris that comes with thinking something is being accomplished in the world, you know, whether I think it's good or bad. It's all just judgment. It's just judgment. I remember having the same experience with a chocolate bar, a little tiny Halloween sized chocolate bar years ago. I remember staring at it and praying, and Spirit was like, yeah, look at this little tiny thing and look at what your mind does with it. Look at what happens with your thoughts. It's unhealthy, it's chocolate, it's fattening, it's bad for your blood sugar. So let's put that in the bad food pile, like the unhealthy food pile. And now look at lettuce and apples and you think there's a healthy food pile. Unhealthy food, healthy food. It's all just judgment. It's all judgment. That was eye-opening.
That blew such a fucking lid off of my world. You have no idea, Christine, how fucked up my days have been trying to feed myself since that whole I don't have to fucking care so much about my diet. Oh my fucking god. It's amazing how much stress the mind puts into food.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember being at the doctor's. This was a while ago. I had lost weight, and the doctor was like, well, "How did you lose weight?" And I paused, and I was like, "Forgiving the past." And she didn't even like. It wasn't food, and it wasn't exercise, and I've been down those roads. I have never lost weight exercising ever. And at one point, I was going to the gym 5 days a week, and 3 of those days was twice a day. And I didn't lose any weight at all. Yeah. So how do you do food now? Do you pause before? Like, do you notice hunger? Do you pause with hunger? How does it look?
Every morning I get out of the way, I ask Holy Spirit to be in charge. What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And I just check in. I used to check in with my guides. Like my old spiritual system, there was a lot of guides. Like, and so there was a lot of checking in. We had like whole heavens teams, we had committees of teams. And so it's all a lot simpler now. And like literally for the last 4 days, every time I catch myself caring about something that has to do with my food intake, I stop and I remind myself that that only has the meaning that I've given it. And so, like, I resonate so much with Calico's story. A lot of it is opposite. She struggled with weight her whole life. I've struggled with weight my whole life. I'm struggling with my weight right now. I struggle to keep weight on. I'm the opposite of an emotional eater. And so in June, I basically stopped eating. And so I lost 20 pounds over the summer that I couldn't afford to lose on my frame. 20 pounds is a lot. And so I'm like, right now, I'm obsessing about gaining it back. And so I'm not a certified nutritionist, but I have so much knowledge. I've read all of the fucking books. I've watched all of the documentaries. I've seen all of the webinars. Like I'm a fucking expert without being certified. And so my go-to is like I have all of this knowledge about how to properly gain weight now that I can eat again. And just letting that go. Like, no, none of that actually means anything. What do you want to eat? What do you want to eat? And so I've just been eating everything. Whatever. So it's kind of like a social experiment right now. Let's see how, one of my personality traits, sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not. Let's see how far we can take this.
Mm.
So let's see how far we can take this being careless. David says careless, carefree, cared for. Jay, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? And in that, like, I don't ask, what would you have me eat? But I'm like, what are we going to eat? And I just kind of contemplate. I've been talking about myself in the third party for several years. So it's just like we. So Jay and I are a team now. What are we going to eat? What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Who are we going to talk to?
Mm.
And so there's been a real like relaxing on all of these rules. I've got so many fucking rules about food, what I should and shouldn't put in my mouth and why. Like lists and lists and lists. So just like really catching myself, learning how to let that go. A lot of practicing the pause and being like, don't have to do that anymore. And then just watching the reactions. I've got like all of these internal wars going on. Just watching that, like, oh yeah, got some pretty strong feelings down there. Hmm.
Mm.
So yeah, just like a lot of relaxing, care less, caring less. It's liberating to care less. I talked about that last night. For me, like super liberating to care less. I'm an overcarer, have been an overcarer for a long time. I'm a recovering overcarer. And so to just learn how to like relax, let that go. That only has the meaning I gave it. Why have I given it such a fucking insane meaning?
I like that. Careless, care less.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like food is one of the ways where I would describe it as being corralled. Like I'm cattle and I'm being corralled. in this really specific fence line, you know, guided. And because I will just go fucking insane with food. I'll be all over the place in my mind with food. So it's like, okay, spirits, okay, we're gonna put you in this really tight corral where you can only go in one direction. It will feel like you can only pick one thing, like you can only go in one direction. And in practical form, what that looks like is I'll think about food, I'll picture it in my mouth, and I can have the experience in the moment when I picture it in my mouth, and then it'll feel like a yes or a no. And a no will feel like, oh God, no. Mm-mm, 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 right? And so then I'll go to the next thing, the next thing. And then when I'm eating, if I'm not listening about when to like put the utensil down and stop, something will go from tasting just totally fine or yummy, whatever it happens to be for me in the moment, to gross,
Hmm.
just like that, from one bite to the next. Boom. Because it'll from one bite to the next, a push will come in. Oh, there's only 3 bites left in the bowl. Why would you not just finish it? Well, that's not the point. The point is listening and following, right? So, yeah. So that's how I feel like I've been, corralled to to listen, to hear and listen, in particular with food.
Mhm.
Because it's really turbulent. It's just really turbulent. So it's hard to hear when you feel turbulent. Yeah. I remember with my blood pressure pills, it took years. It was interesting. My blood pressure was on the cusp of hypertension for years. And the doctors kept saying, well, it's not really high enough for meds. So, no. And I was like, okay, good. Because I had a preference for no meds, right? And then it came time for meds. And I went through this awful experience before the meds of every time I got my blood pressure checked, I think my blood pressure went up like the anxiety. Getting my blood pressure checked, my anxiety would like go through the fucking roof because I had a preference of how I wanted that to go, you know. And and then the day came where it was time for meds, and that took years. And then so I was like, fine, okay. And getting my blood pressure checked, that got wiped out because I had to wear a blood pressure cuff for 24 hours. And it went off like every 30 minutes, I think, all day and all night. So that fear and that anxiety got fucking decimated from that experience, right? And then so the pills came in, and it took me, I had the prescription. I couldn't go fill it right away. I couldn't do it. And then, and part of the reason why I couldn't, one, I have a preference to not take medication. Two, I have a preference to not spend money on medication. And three, I don't like taking pills. I prefer not to take pills. So I go to the pharmacist. I finally lean in and I go to the pharmacist, and they're really cheap and they're really tiny. I was like, oh my God. Like there's symbols showing up. Like it's okay. It's okay. So I take the pills home. I had them for 2 weeks before I could take them. And at one point, I remember laying on my bedroom was this room back then. And so my bed was like right here. I had a nightstand like right here. And out of the corner of my eye, I see the label on the pill bottle, and it said, and it's spirit talking to me. All I saw was Christine take daily. And it wasn't a sticker I was seeing. It was direct communication I was experiencing. It's very different. It's very different, right? So then I started taking my pills. But the whole numbers thing, I remember being told, you think you understand numbers. You think you understand your weight? That's a number. You think you understand that if you weigh this, this is not good. If you weigh this is better. This is healthier. This is whatever. Let's take another number. You think you understand your blood pressure numbers. You think you understand numbers. Age. You think you understand that. Your size as a number. You think you understand that number. Size 8 versus size 14. You think you understand that. And I don't understand numbers. I can't possibly understand numbers. That was humbling. Like all my beliefs about all the ways that I experience numbers, thinking in a hubris way that I understand what that means. And then the impact of each belief with each specific type of number, like the size of clothes, like that has an impact. The belief around the size has an impact. Yeah. Yeah, there was lots of shopping at Value Village and secondhand stores that Spirit had us going to, and it was all about don't look at the prices and don't look at the sizes. Because when you're shopping at a secondhand store, when you're looking at jeans in a secondhand store, every designer, every they're all sized differently. Size 10 with Levi is not size 10 with silver or whatever. So you can't go by size. You literally can't go by the number. You have to drop in. You have to go by feeling. You have to go by feeling. And then they took the change rooms away. So you couldn't try them on to see if they were going to fit. So then you really had to drop in and go with the feeling. Yeah, that was a deep unraveling. It's still unraveling. I still have attachment to certain numbers being a certain way.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I'm still working on there's the whole cause and effect thing. Like David talks about cause and effect. There's only one cause and effect, and it's God. And that's it. Every other thing in the world that the world would describe as cause and effect, like food and weight or medication and health or whatever, um, it's thought of as cause and effect. And it's not true. It's actually not true. So I've really been looking at that in terms of my blood pressure. If I notice it, if I feel like I don't like the number that I see when I take it, then I go have a bath and the number drops. Um, and I'm just really leaning into the belief in cause and effect with that. Because also, if I look up, because it really seems like a hot bath lowers blood pressure. That seems to be the evidence. But it's funny because if I look up how to drop blood pressure fast, it actually says to meditate. So it's like go in the mind, go drop in, you know. So it's not that the hot water lowers the blood pressure. It's the mind softens, the mind quietens, the mind, you know.
Relaxes.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
I just need a lot of convincing sometimes. Spirit has to do a lot of convincing.
Yeah. The ego is so fucking stubborn. Takes
Yeah.
a lot of convincing. Little nudges, little nudges, little nudges. Gently unwind, 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 unwind. Yeah. And it's a highly individualized curriculum. And they just keep poking at the bear. Poke you here, poke you here, poke you here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice reminder. The it's a highly individualized curriculum.
Yeah.
That's really helpful, especially like if I think about like what how you share about the fixer. I don't have a clear ability to really relate to that the way you do. I can tell it's a bit It's not exactly where I would get caught up in the way you describe it, how it took over for you, right? Like it takes over and it just becomes this thing. And mine's a bit different. And with Andrew, he's so convinced that he just has to look this way for him right now. The last year and a half, it had to go this way. It was always gonna go this way. And I mean, yes, the script, but if I put that aside for a minute and just remember that it's an individualized curriculum and it's not about a right way or a wrong way or a just try this. It'll be easier, Andrew. Just, like it's not that's not what's going on. That is not what's going on. I mean, the choice to suffer is self-inflicted, but what the circumstances look like, that is not what we get a choice in. We do not get a choice in how it looks. That that's the script part. Like that's it already it's already happened. It's already over. There's nothing you can't change something that's already over. So it's just what am I doing with what's unfolding in the moment? Am I making myself miserable or am I trusting? You know, and trusting is good stuff.
And who am I watching it with? Because it's a script, we're just watching it. Who are we watching it with? That's the key. That's the simplicity of it.
Yeah. I
We
remember
just
Sarah
watch.
St. Clair said to me, "Oh my God, this was so helpful." She was like, "Christine, you're under the mistaken belief. You think there's a Christine, you think there's a you that's choosing between spirit and ego. And there isn't a you choosing between spirit and ego. There's just spirit and ego." And I was like, fuck me. I really kind of thought there were three of us in this, and there isn't. Like, wow, that that shone a pretty bright light. That was a pretty bright light for sure.
Took a while for the dust to settle after that one.
Well, yeah, there's so much hubris in thinking there's an individual me choosing the light or the darkness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Hey, I want to share this with you. If you feel any guidance to respond, that'd be great. Um, so something I've noticed that's going on with me and Andrew, for me, I shouldn't say Andrew, it's really for me, like he'll be talking and he's talking in English. It's English. But I'll just be like, I don't understand a fucking word he's saying. Like I don't understand what he's talking about. And I feel like I need to remember to do with him what how I'm being told to read the course, which is notice when you're trying to follow the course intellectually and get out. Get out of that mode and drop into feeling. You're seeing the words, but you're actually feeling the message. And I know that's what I have to do with Andrew because trying to follow him intellectually, it's not working at all. It's not working. And most of the time, I can just be like, you can just hold the space and feel what he's saying. I don't have to understand what he's saying on the surface, but other times I feel myself going crazy, like, trying to or wanting him to explain it differently or something. So I just wondered, like, do you feel to share anything about that? If you don't, that's fine. Just I feel open to hearing if there's anything helpful.
Well, it's the ego that wants to understand and wants to be right.
Mhm.
So I think it's just one of those things where you're recognizing that part of you that so wants to understand him and can't. The ego throws us confusion all the time. So yeah, I just see that as you recognizing that there's that ego part of you that's like wants to understand and can't. Um,
Right, because the ego can't understand the truth.
yeah, and two egos in a relationship is not a holy relationship. So I see also that you're like being shown the difference. Like when you're in your ego, it's not working. You're striving to understand, and you're not understanding. You're not meeting as equals on the same level playing field. So it's also that distinction between holy relationship and ego fucking shit show.
I feel grateful that I have the contrast experience. Yeah, that's really helpful.
What was I reading yesterday or listening something? This course is all about relationships, like healing in relationship. That's where the gold is. You can't do, I can't do the work that you're doing right now because I'm not in an intimate relationship. That's where the fucking magic is. When you're in an intimate relationship, that's where the real fucking work is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know,
there
there's
was
something
even
else
a
that happens.
distinction. Sorry.
There's something else that gets exposed with that kind of assignment. I spent a lot of time single, and things just kept getting cracked open as Andrew and I, were leaning in different ways. Things just got fully exposed, fully cracked, and then softened, really softened enough that when it comes up again, it doesn't take over and I'm not lost, struggling. It comes up and it's like, "Oh, there it is. That's tight. Okay, let's just relax. Let's loosen it." You know, that's the practice for quite a while now. Yeah.
It also reminds me of like Keith Kavanaugh is always talking about the ego Jedi mind trick. And it has two of them. One of them is that we forget, and the other one is confusion. We just get this veil of like fog comes in, this confusion, and we're just like lost in ego again.
Yeah, that's great actually because lately I've been using the word confused. Like I feel really confused, and I would say that it's not one that has come up a lot for me. Not in a way that I've been aware of. And I have been using that a little bit lately. And it's because the veil drops in, like something tightens, you know? Yeah. What was the first one? What did you say? The second one was confusion and the first one was what?
We forget.
I forget. We forget. I forgot what it was. It's really great.
Classic.
That's great. Mhm.
Yeah. Sneaky fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard that my ego was trying to kill me. I wasn't a Course in Miracles student yet, and I was still really fully identified as a healer and a coach. And it was my understanding that the ego was trying to keep me safe. And so what a wrestle that was. When that information came in, I was like, nope, not having it. That's not what's going on here. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. But really quickly, I was shown that no, it's my ego is not trying to keep me safe. My ego is fucking vicious. And not only is it trying to take me out, it's trying to take you out too. That
Mhm.
was a scary revelation for me when I started noticing how vicious my ego is to others. I hid all of that under my nice girl persona. I'm very willing to admit how self-destructive I am, but when I finally started seeing how vicious I was to others, watching my ego turn special love into special hate, wow, yeah,
Mm.
vicious, 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 vicious. Yeah,
Mhm.
I see you. See you being vicious.
That's really great. It's funny. I feel um like when all this started coming in for me, like going deeper and really exploring that, I was in my early 20s when it started. I'd been through a lot of death as a teenager, and I think I was cracked open in a way that I like there was so much grief. You know what I mean? So much sadness and so much grief that I think I was just cracked. Um and so these books started flowing in, and I didn't go through a period. I didn't have experiences like, nope, that can't be true, and shut the book. And it just didn't look that way for me. It's like I was so desperate for clarity that I was willing in a way that I had no idea was even there. Like there was so much grief, and I I don't know. It's like it created a like a vacuum. Just I need something. I have to have something, you know. So I can remember like reading these things. Like for me, the first one really the first one was Conversations with God, and it really it just it was a display of willingness to hear something other than what was in my own mind. You know, like Neil was even writing it from the perspective of what the fuck? How is this possible? You know, so even that was it, you know what I mean? That was the perspective of the writer. So he was practicing being willing and being open and writing this shit down, even though he's in disbelief about it, you know? So, so by the time I got to the course, I was just like, yeah, it always felt like remembering to me everything I ever read that was helpful to helping me see darkness, see myself, see my thoughts, see my judgments, see all that. It was, yeah, it just was like remembering, like I was remembering something ancient. I could feel this like remembering experience, even though it was subtle a lot of the time, especially at first. Yeah, I never once with any book that came in was like, nope, that's too much. I got to put you aside right now. I just feel like I was so desperate for something else, anything else. And then so spirit's like, "All right, this one's ready. Let's let's swoop in." You know what I mean? It's like, but I needed a shitstorm to be ready, like all the death, like friends dying and having to tell people so and so is dead. Like I was 17, you know what I mean? Like it had to go dark, like really dark in order for me to be that open. Cause I was closed. Like I was fucking closed for business everywhere, you know? But that grief, it doesn't ever close. It's always there. It's always showing up. It flows everywhere. So even though in my mind I was trying to be closed and protective, I was just ended up being wide open. Like when you're that upset, the only way there's only one direction when you're that lost and that angry and that, there's only one way to go. It's like the uncomfortable thing. Like spirit has to make me sometimes really uncomfortable for me to be willing to see something differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been brought to my surrender point several times. Like the biggest one was in June of 2010 when I woke up strapped to a hospital bed.
You actually
Um,
woke up like that.
I woke. They had to strap me to the hospital bed to stop me, to get me to stop trying to kill myself.
How was that?
Yeah,
Because Byron Katie has a story like that too, right?
yeah.
Like the whole cockroach on her
Oh
foot,
yeah, I just
right?
heard that this
I don't
morning.
remember the whole story or anything, but there's
Yeah,
something about that, right? She was in a hospital and she was in a padded room and blah blah blah.
yep. So low. Yeah, and I think like Helen and Bill in the beginning, right? There has to be another way. That's the surrender point. And I think we all, like, I've been through several of them. Like, it's a spectrum. The universe says, I had to make you that uncomfortable. You weren't going to move. I think it's a huge part of the journey. And if we can see those spots, if we can get the message and it comes in, then we don't have to be screamed at.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's a huge part of because we're all here to wake up, right? So we're waking up in different degrees to who we really are, what's really going on here. Happens in increments, happens in baby steps, happens in fucking waves and tsunamis as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's all a highly individualized journey. It's such a perfectly planned, orchestrated shit show so that you can see it. Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing to fix. Because I'm like, okay, I see it. Now we got to fix it. Like, no, no, you don't have to fix it. You just have to see it non-judgmentally. Because the fixer is judging it as bad.
Yeah, it's such a distraction. Eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember in Mexico, I would put things up on my wall, whatever I was specifically leaning towards and needing to remember. And at one point I had I'm right on schedule because the idea of wanting to be further along or I could have looked at that faster or whatever it is, but remembering that I was right on schedule, seeing it every day and really really leaning towards that it just was like a pressure valve release in a way that I wouldn't even notice the pressure building until it released. Oh, right, I'm right on schedule. Oh, thank God, I'm right on schedule. Like, it's wild not even recognizing the pressure buildup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just care a little bit less. Another notch. Oh, caring a little bit less about that too.
Care less.
Just caring
I
less.
really like that.
Me too. Yeah. Careless,
It's just
carefree,
like
cared for.
disease, disease,
Yeah.
dis-ease,
This ease.
you
Yeah.
know? And intimacy, into me see. I
Mm,
really like all those things. I found them so helpful over the years and from one moment to the next.
yeah.
Mhm. I feel like I was gonna ask you something and now I can't remember what. I don't know. I don't know. But I still have that beautiful experience of, I don't know, like the learning and the shift that's just like right here. Like I'm not really there yet, but it's like I can feel it waiting for me or something.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
beautiful. Mm,
Yeah, I think there's a small mix of like, I shouldn't say small, that's irrelevant. Um of fear and excitement. And anytime I ever went to Living Miracles or I was at Jimmy's or whatever, there was always a mix of fear and excitement. And it's like that big yes. The excitement is that big yes. So even if I have that, even if there's fear coming up, I know to just keep going, because I've had experiences where the fear was there and there wasn't excitement. And it was like, okay, we're just not going to go anywhere until like I'm not going to, I know what the big yes feels like, and if it's not present for whatever reason, then let's just pause and wait for a minute. But
yeah.
I don't feel that with whatever's coming.
Hmm.
I feel this excitement, and I feel this like, wow, like trust is a beautiful experience. It's so nice. It just makes all the other stuff just really soften. And yeah.
It's so comfortable, that feeling of trust.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Let's lean into that. So I used to, when I work with people, let's breathe into that. Let's explore that deeper. Breathe into that. Tell me more about it. David Hoffmeister's hilarious. He has several videos that talk about this. One of them is specifically called The Development of Trust. And he warns us that Jesus warned him. It has 6 stages. 4 of them are dark.
I love the sentence where it's like, this doesn't need to be painful, but it often is.
It usually is, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those we used to talk about the gift wrapped in barbed wire.
Oh,
Enlightenment is the gift wrapped in barbed wire. You have to, because it takes a lot of work. Like there's a lot of, like we used to call it the chipping away. We would chip away at the mud that covered the Buddha underneath. And yeah, you unwind the barbed wire. You got to go through the 4 dark layers to get to the gold underneath, which is that, it's so comforting to trust. Just let your guard down and trust, to be carefree, cared for, clueless. That takes trust. It's worth it. Go through the dark layers. Yeah, so worth it. Anything else, Christine?
I don't think so for tonight.
Well, happy Friday to you.
Yeah.
Lots of love.
I'm murdering again.
Murderer. So vicious. Good night.
I'll see you tomorrow, probably.
Awesome. Bye.